Hey everyone, how's it going? Today we're going to be reviewing and growing our understanding of Twisted Fate Top. Now originally I wasn't really going to make a video covering this champion because I did assume it was going to get nerfed into the ground, because it is pretty oppressive to play against. However, the nerf to him was quite small, and also with the upcoming patch there's no future nerf, so I feel like he's going to be in top lane for quite a while, so we're going to be reviewing why exactly he's so strong. Now I'm going to be reviewing Kiin's games, because he, in my opinion, is the best Twisted Fate player right now, but I'm only going to be watching his solo queue. Because in my opinion, playing TF in competitive is so much easier than solo queue because you have your jungler and voice comms. He can counter gank for you whenever you want. You know you can communicate it in advance. The enemy top laner needs a bailout. Can you come counter gank? Or for example, in solo queue, you're probably going to run against a lot of Fed champions. You might face a 4-0 Evelyn or a Zed, Talon, champs like that, where Twisted Fate doesn't really deal very well with champs like that. So if you're playing him in competitive, much more controlled environment, everyone's 0-0, game is quite stable, he's a lot more easy to execute. So we're going to be reviewing the, very volatile solo queue games that we know, and we're going to be figuring out why exactly Kiin's win rate is so high on this champion. Hey everyone, if you're passionate about improving and leveling up your gameplay, I've been offering coaching classes for 5 days a week for quite some time, and just seen firsthand how much my students have been improving across all different elo brackets. How it works is you'll come to a class with a VOD like reviewed, and I'm going to help you with your early game, your mid game, or anything you feel like needs improving. And if you're unsure, then I'm going to steer you in the right direction by setting clear learning objectives. Link's going to be in the description, I hope to see you there, but if not, then enjoy the video. Now before we dive into our review, we're going to be quickly covering his setup, and as for his runes, he runs Fleet Footwork with Overheal, Alacrity, and Coup de Grace every single game. Now some people do take Press the Attack, but I advise against it. I would say Fleet is much more powerful in lane, so much harder to play against, and it's a lot easier for you to space your opponent and sustain in a lot of matchups. Now as for your secondary runes, he does run Bone Plating and Overgrowth every single game. He even runs Bone Plating versus ranged champions because, for example, if you're up against a Jace, you can actually time your trade around Bone Plating. It's not easy, he can't just pop it like you're a melee champion when you go to last hit, so as long as you're timing your trades around Bone Plating's cooldown, you will get a lot of value from this rune. And the shards are going to be attack speed, flat AD, and he does actually take the really high flat HP, level 1, the 65 HP, in difficult matchups. So if he's with champs like Aurelia or Jax, champs like that, he does run the flat HP, but if he's in a free matchup like Cassante, he will run scaling. Now as for his item build, he does go Doran's Blade every single game and rushes tier 2 boots as fast as he can. Now a lot of TFs I see, they rush Swifty boots no matter what, but Kiin actually only goes Swifties in matchups where the spacing is very important. So for example up against Aatrox, the extra movement speed and slow resist is very important in that matchup because you can use it to space out his Qs, dodge them, get out of W, and make it really hard for him to get onto you. But if not, if he's not up against a champion like that, he will actually go play steel caps in matchups where, for example, they have Wukong top, Irelia, Jax, Viego jungle, champs like that. He'll go steel caps, or he'll go Berserker Greaves in more free matchups. So champions like Gwen, champions like Cassante, where he can just order them down, he's actually going to go Berserker Greaves instead. And as for his core items, he goes Static Shiv into Rapid Fire Cannon into Storm Razor every single game. He doesn't really mess around with the Kraken Slayer Rageblade build, he prefers the one-shot, play around your W build. Now after these 3 items, it really depends on the game. He'll either go a defensive item like Zhonya's, Chuckshot the Protein Randuin, something like that, or just more damage, maybe a Triforce Kraken, really depends on the game, but most of the time defensive stats are going to be great at this point. So now it's time to start our review, and of course we're going to be starting in the laning phase. In my opinion, the most important part about playing TF top, you really need to have a good understanding of lane, and probably the most important part of laning on TF is you really need to be taking 100 to 0 trades. It's really important you stay as high HP as possible on this champion, and just take tiny trades, just whittle them down, get them low HP, and the small damage you take from maybe one of their spells or from minions, you're going to sustain back with Fleet Footwork, but it's really important you stay as high HP as you can and poke them down. Now, as you can see, he is poking the opponent when they go for CS, but his top priority is actually getting perfect CS himself, because it doesn't matter if you permanently hit your opponent and poke them down if you're missing half of your CS, so he actually prioritizes perfect CS over poking. Of course, he's a good player. He's hit that great balance of poking your opponent while CSing, but he's not like a lot of players I see when they play top lane champs, top lane range champs like Jace or Teemo or Vayne, where they just miss a bunch of CS to poke the opponent, and both of you are 10 CS out of 19, something like that, where he prioritizes having as high CS as possible. So I opened up, as you can see, 12 out of 12 from the first 2 waves, because that's his priority. Now granted, Gwen is not really pressuring him very high, but of course when Gwen was walking towards him, he would prioritize the CS over the hit. Now as you can see here, he does miss a couple, of course he's not perfect, but he's mainly aiming to get good CS. I'll speed it up, nice clean 3-wave crash, and what he does next, in my opinion, is really important. He does it in a lot of his games, and it's a lot different than the way you'd play a different champ. For example, if you're playing Jax or Renekton from this point, you'd probably be letting the wave come back into you, trying to freeze, trying to punish, trying to get an early kill over Gwen before she scales up. But of course TF doesn't really have strong all-in, he can't really freeze and all-in the opponent top laner. Gwen will probably just pop W and one-shot the wave and base and TP. So he's still letting the wave come back towards him because he doesn't want Gwen to be farming under tower for free, but he's really hard trimming it. He's not trimming it to the point where it's going to start pushing towards her, but he's trimming it enough so she has no chance to really get the wave in. So really hard trimming, but not too much to the point where it's actually going to crash under Gwen's towers. And as you can see now, just standing between the minions and Gwen, making it really hard for her to walk up and CS without a W. So he's just trying to get perfect CS himself and deny CS from Gwen. He's not trying to kill her, trying to rush into a solo kill, anything like that. TF doesn't actually have a lot of kill threat 1v1 in the early stages of the lane, so he's mainly playing to stay as high HP as you can. As you can see, he probably hasn't dropped below 95% HP this entire lane. Granted, Quinn's not really playing that aggressive, she doesn't really have the option to, but he's prioritizing high CS, poking her when she goes for her own farm, and trying to keep the wave around here. He doesn't want to be letting her farm it under tower for free, but he also doesn't want to be letting her crash it under tower. So it takes a good level of understanding of wave control to be able to do this, but it's something you can practice with intention, especially when you're playing a ranged champion like TF. So you can see here, he's eventually going to start to flip the prio later on. I'll speed it up a little bit. But as you can see, just holding it, punishing her when she goes for CS. Not the best trade there. He's going to go WOD now. Of course, TF very vulnerable to ganks. And now he's pushing towards her. Now, there are a couple reasons why he's starting to push now. First of all, of course, grubs are up as junglers here. You know, he wants to be playing, maybe playing for a dive. But I'd say, because he does this in most of his games, he doesn't really want to be letting Gwen crash the wave. Because even though he's stronger at this point, he could hold a freeze here. If it was a 1v1 custom game, it's not, so Warwick could just come up, maybe push their wave in, and then Gwen could base, TP back in, full HP, full mana, item advantage, and of course TF top doesn't have TP, so he could find himself stuck in the lane with high amounts of gold. So really important that even though you're pulling the wave out of tower, allowing it to come back, you don't let it fully crash and you don't give your opponent a free back timer. Otherwise you can find yourself being stuck in the lane, right? Because you're a champion without TP, so it's really important that you get the first recall if you can, but of course you want to be punishing your opponent as well. So as you can see, just poking her down, nothing Warwick can do about it, and now he's going to be playing for the dive, so you can see really high HP this whole lane. He might have dropped to 70% at one stage, but now really easy for his team to dive because he didn't try to solo kill anything like that. And from this point, it's just GG. 51 CS to 21 before this dive. It was around, what, 51 to 21? Of course, if she caught this farm, let's say his team wasn't good, jungle mid didn't dive, he'd still be up around 20 CS. So still really great 1v1 play. But as you can see, if you play TF in this way, it's really easy for your team to capitalize and punish your opponent even further. So now that we've watched him play a pretty easy matchup, it's time to watch him play a more difficult one. And in my opinion, Jax is one of the hardest matchups for TF, because of the fact where his E of course blocks your stun card, which makes it really hard to disengage any trade he does against you. Now even though the early points of the lane aren't that hard, if you get behind against this champion, it's going to be really hard for you to play, so I do recommend banning Jax if you're looking to blind pick TF. Now, Kiin doesn't care, he keeps Jax open every game, he doesn't mind, but of course I do recommend it, especially if you're just starting out learning the champion. Now, as you can see, even though Jax has a strong level 1, Kiin is still playing really high up in the lane because he knows he can abuse his bone plating in this first trade. So here, holding on to his W, until after the Jax E expires, so he's able to retrade, and bone plating actually blocks 60 damage in that trade, which of course is very significant for a level 1 all-in. And as you can see, he's just looking to poke down Jax with his W when he walks up, abuse the fact that his E is on cooldown, and still trying to play for that perfect CS. And something else that I thought was interesting is in most situations, most top laners when they play range champs, so great spacing by him here, holding on to the W. Most top laners would ward this bush to get, of course, the W down, but if he did that versus Jax Viego when he's pushing, it's going to be very hard for him to survive the gank, so he's holding on to his ward. But the thing he does instead is he just lets his W keep ticking for a period of time and make it harder for Jax to leave the bush and walk up for minions. So you can see, yeah, just looking to push, high CS, poke down Jax when he can, and really just looking to maintain the same high HP trades, right? 100 to 0 trading as best as you can. Of course, first Jax is a lot harder because he's a point-click jump, like right now, but he can time his W perfectly right now, where he buffered it through the ECC, so even though he was stunned, he was still throwing the W out, and he was able to get down the slow. Now, probably would have been better to get a stun there, but of course, still a great trade overall for him. So he uses his ward now, he actually misses, which is unlucky, but you can see what he's trying to do, holding onto his ward so he can spot if Viego's looking to gank him before he can look to crash this wave. So here, baiting out the Jaxi, great stuff by him, and he's just looking to crash this wave and play like he normally did. Now, in this game, he actually had to 4-wave crash instead of 3, because, of course, last game, Gwen was sitting far back, but Jax was playing very aggressive, trimming the wave a bit, stunning it with his E, so he did have to adapt and crash wave 4 instead. But still going to be a similar game plan to before. Looking here, trade onto Jax when he jumps onto him, get the wave in, 100 to 0 trading. But of course, versus Jax, you are going to take a lot more damage than an easier matchup like Gwen. So he chose to base here, of course cancelled by the jungle, because he knows if he lets the wave bounce back towards him, and Viego helps Jax get this wave in, he would be stuck in the lane 400 HP, Jax would base TP back, his lane would be completely over. So you can see he really has a good understanding of when to base on this champion, but of course cancelled, bit of jungle gap here, bit of an unlucky ward, but he still has to base anyway. So Ghost is a pretty good cop, get out of jail free card, I'd say, for surviving a first gank. Sometimes you will need a flash, but Ghost is going to do the trick most of the time because you can stun the jungler or the enemy top laner, if granted they're not playing Jax. So great lane by Kiin all in all, and as you can see by his abilities, he's actually got 2 points W, 2 points C, and not putting a point in Q, which is something you're going to do every single game on TF. You don't really need to put a point in Q, you just max E and get as many points in W as you can. Now something else you're going to have to watch out for, if you play TF top, is the enemy jungler is really going to be looking to punish you. You're in a mobile top laner, and as you can see, he's trying to gank him as he gets back to lane, but Kiin was more than ready for it. He's able to space them out, he's able to play this quite well, and really easy for him to trade. You can see that step back there versus Viego, really beautiful stuff. Spacing is such a key part about playing this champion, and they're able to actually pick up a trade kill. So great early lane, great respecting of the jungler, not just with his ward, but the way he played the lane, and also he even thought about the enemy jungler being there on his way back to lane, so he has a really good understanding that even though his champion's strong in lane, that doesn't mean the enemy jungler is going to let him use that all the time, so you really have to be playing around that. Next up, we're going to be going through how to play the mid game. Now, most of the time with TF, you'd actually be surprised, but your first ulti is going to be used to get back to lane. Because if you try to ulti bot out of base at level 6, level 7, the enemy top laner, maybe he's playing Jax or Renekton, maybe even a champ like Yorick, he's just going to get 3 plates, you're going to lose 2 or 3 waves. It's not really going to be worth it. You should only use your first ulti bot if it's going to be game exploding, right? If you have Draven, maybe versus Yumi, something like that, and you're diving them, of course it's fine. But most of the time it's best to use your ulti across the map for a play like this. You can see 13 minutes 30. He's not going to lose much. Best case scenario for Aatrox when he makes this play is he loses maybe 1 plate, which is definitely worth the play he's about to make, where he just runs straight bottom. He looks mid momentarily, but he's looking to go straight bottom and just completely blow open the game. So ulti's in, kills the AD carry, and he doesn't stop there. He doesn't base and run back top because he knows plates are going to fall. In 5 seconds, he's not going to lose more than 1 plate, so he eats the enemy red buff, he sticks around, he's looking to really blow open the game through bot and utilize his champion, because at this point he has static shiv, and of course a lot of damage and point click stun, really easy for him to blow open the game like this. So comes down, kills the AD carry again, coming back to lane, so kills the AD carry twice, takes the red buff, gets away between the tower, makes it hard for Seraphine to play, and Aatrox knows it's not worth him staying top trying to break this tower, he has to get involved or the game is just doomed. So really good play by Kiin there, because he knew that tower flate's going to be falling soon, so he can make a game exploding play bottom and not lose much on the opposite side of the map. Now, as for your standard macro on this champion, most of the time it's going to be very similar to playing other strong side laning champions like Yorick or Fiora, champs like that, where you want to be going to the opposite side of the next objective and creating pressure. So you can see Kiin has gone top, because everyone is playing for Dragon in this game, so he wants to be pulling these strong team fighting champions like Aatrox away from the Dragon fight, and if not, then he's just going to get free objectives and gold and just accelerate himself. So as you can see, break tower, looking to push side, make Aatrox respond to him. I feel like he was quite hesitant on this wave, didn't need to be, but making people respond to him and creating pressure, and then he always has the option to TP or ulti into a fight once he's created their 5v4. However, a big difference between Twisted Fate and other side laning champions like Tryndamere or Yorick is TF is actually very useful in a group scenario at 2 items plus. So as you can see now, Static Shiv Rapid Fire Cannon, he's got a spike. He's going to be looking to push out this side, of course, create some pressure, but then instead of pushing bot all the way in, trying to play for tower, when his champion is very vulnerable, and also he doesn't have ulti up, he's instead going to be looking to fog towards his team, and look for picks with the rapid fire stun card. So he wasn't able to get a quick play here, of course very scared of this bush, wasn't able to get a quick play, but he's still able to be useful in a group scenario. So looking for, fishing for stun cards right now, abusing the rapid fire range, stun Seraphine over the wall, flashes ulti, great stuff by him, and they're able to pick up the tower, some kills. So even though you have the option of being very powerful inside and trying to, poke your opponent, play for towers, you don't only have to do that, especially at 2 items plus. You're very strong in a group setting and abusing rapid fire stun cards to make picks. Now, as for the decision making between, what you should be doing, if you want to be playing side or playing grouped, most of the time it's going to be exactly what he just did. Push outside, make somebody respond, create pressure, and then group up. but it does depend on how well your team's doing and the other champions in the game. So from this game, they have Ivern, they have, Zeri Maokai doing, his team's playing quite well. They're very strong in team fights. They win team fight scenarios, so he doesn't have to rely on split pushing as his one way to win the game. But maybe if it's in your solo queue game, you got the feeding Yasuo, or maybe you have, really bad team comp that doesn't team fight very well, Nidalee Yasuo for example, something like that, then you could prioritize side lane more often. But in a game where you win team fights, it's good to create pressure, group up, and abuse rapid fire stun cards like he's trying to do here. So just controlling the area here, abusing his rapid fire stun card, and something that's really interesting about this setup right now is even though he's a strong side lane champion, he's the one grouping up and controlling the area, right? TF's still a control mage at heart, especially with rapid fire cannon, you're really good at controlling spaces. And in this game, he has a Yone mid, a champion that's very powerful in side lane. So he's actually a lot more useful grouped up than Yone. He can stun people when they walk in, abuse his, his max range with rapid fire cannon, and control the area and play for Baron. Where Yone is more useful in a side lane setting because he's a lot tankier, a lot harder to lock down and kill than a Twisted Fate. So it really depends on the mid lane champion you have in your game as well, what your role in the game is going to be, because I guarantee if he had an Orianna or a Syndra or something like that, he would probably be the one in the side lane creating pressure and letting his actual control mates control this area. But because he's more useful in a group setting, because of this exact reason, where he just one-shots this guy with rapid fire stun card, then his Yone, he's the one controlling space and controlling vision and playing for Baron with his team, and his Yone is the one creating pressure. So important to keep tabs on what champion your mid laner is playing. If they're playing a champion that's a very powerful group, like a Karma or a Victor, then of course let them be the one controlling the space, but if not, you want to be playing on the opposite side, creating pressure and ulting into the play later on, or just running it downside and looking to end the game that way. Alright everyone, I'm going to call it there. Now, even though Twisted Fate might not be the most fun champion to play against in the game, he is quite fun to play. So if you love playing strong side laning champions and lane bullies, he fits that criteria. The champion is going to be quite fun for you. But other than that, if there's a unique champion you've seen running around in solo queue, or maybe even from VODs, feel free to let me know down below if you want to see me cover it, and I'll see what I can do. But other than that, I will see you guys next time.